Hello, and welcome to episode 10 of African Battle Royale. Let's get right into it. Somalia will be making an alliance with Cape Verde. And there's not really a point to this alliance besides the fact that Somalia just wants to show Tanzania they don't need them, so they just picked a random country and said, hey, you want to be allies? And yeah, now they are. Also, these guys badly needed an ally, remember. Ivory Coast will be invading Northwest. With the collapse of the Eastern Dark Blue Alliance, the Ivory Coast is hoping that the Western Dark Blue Alliance will follow suit, and they're going to try their hand at invading into Mauritania. Obviously, this will trigger the Dark Blue Alliance to declare war on the Ivory Coast, and they'll start in the east, invading into the Ivory Coast's territory and taking over a lot of it. Then Equatorial Guinea gets involved. They start invading into Cote d'Ivoire, and Cote d'Ivoire's gains they had made in the north evaporate as they beg with all their heart to basically be able to surrender, and they're like, no, you must be destroyed. Also, something I want to say is, obviously, sometimes in this series, a country would have, realistically been allowed to surrender, but it's not given the chance to surrender because eventually I need to have only one country. This is kind of one of those times. And just like that, pretty much the entirety of West Africa is under the control of the Dark Blue Alliance, with the exception of Guinea-Bissau, who's also mostly part of it, and Nigeria, who is allied to it. These two countries are allied to the Blue Alliance. Mauritania will be making an alliance with Zambia. So Zambia will be joining the Dark Blue Alliance, and their reason for doing this is that the Dark Blue Alliance is starting to grow in strength, and they just had a massive falling out with Congo, who was pretty much their main ally before this, and they want a new stable ally. And obviously they're not going to join Somalia's pitiful alliance that is literally just there so that Somalia can look stronger, and they don't really want to join Rwanda, so they join Tanzania. Botswana will be invading east. So it's a war between Botswana and Lesotho. And for the first time in a long time in this series, no outside countries will be getting involved. So Botswana will start invading east into Lesotho. But Lesotho is pretty strong. They're able to hold back their invasion a little bit. And they have a pretty smart strategy, which is taking out the north of Botswana, which is less populated and less important to the Botswanan government. And so they're able to do that pretty well. And the Botswanan government doesn't really care, because they focus on the south, which is less important to the Lesotho government until they get to the capital, which is probably around here. And Lesotho actually has to start to defend. But now that they've access to the Atlantic, they start basically fighting against the Botswanan Navy. And it's really funny because both Botswana and Lesotho in the real world are landlocked and therefore don't have navies. But in this world, they both have navies, and the Botswanan one is smaller than the Lesotho one. And the Lesotho one basically railroads through occupied territories, transport the ships. They seize this port. They use the ships that were already at this port from Botswana and their own ships, and they basically navally clobber Botswana, and they land in Cape Town, which has pretty much been Botswana's de facto capital, because although whatever Botswana's current capital is the official capital, the government spends most of its time and does a lot of its meetings in Cape Town. So once Cape Town is captured, they can't go back to the real capital, so they're just kind of probably going to be in exile, honestly, in Congo or something. But anyway, the military doesn't really know what to do because they're not getting consistent orders anymore, and they fight back pretty well, which is why Botswana's never given a chance to surrender, but unfortunately they will not win. And Botswana will be fully annexed into Lesotho. Nigeria will be invading southeast. And this is going to be one of the largest wars in history between two powers, because these are two of the most powerful countries on the continent, and both of them are going to war with each other. So Nigeria will start invading into Congo, and Congo is less population than Nigeria in this world, even though they way more territory. And Nigeria's military is twice the size of Congo's. But despite that, Congo's military is twice the size of Nigeria's because they're way more aggressive. So although Nigeria does well at first, especially because they have a much better economy as well, Congo is eventually able to fight back because of their stronger military that they just had down south for the previous war, but they're not bringing it up. And once it arrives hard and it arrives fast. And Nigeria did not realize what was going to happen as Abuja, which I think is right here-ish, gets taken, as well as Lagos, which is their most important city. And basically all of Nigeria is captured, as well as most of their population. But obviously their population is just so large that it's really hard to take them out, and some of them will rebel, including some people across the border. But overall, they are being able to occupy it. The Nigerian military has retreated for long enough. They finally start to hold their ground. They retake Lagos, and they're doing relatively well. The Chad African Republic joins the war against Nigeria to seize some of their northern territories that no one cares about, and they do that. But Nigeria is struggling, and so they finally petition the Dark Blue Alliance to get involved in the war. And before they even hear a response back, Zambian troops are moved in. And all the other countries in the Dark Blue Alliance think that Zambia just forgot to tell them that they were going to do this. But no, Zambia did this without telling the rest of their alliance because they knew their alliance would say no, and they really wanted this land. And before long, the south, which had basically been mostly vacated of Congolese military, is seized by Zambia. And Zambia will retreat partially from Nigeria to get a much better front line that they can hold as they move some of their troops down to attack Zambia. And Congolese military is also stronger than the Zambian military. Congolese military plus Nigerian military is roughly about the same size as the Zambian plus Nigerian is roughly the same size as the Congolese military, but they also have the CAR on their side, which is slightly improving it. However, Tanzania now will start sending troops in, and that's going to make sure that the Dark Blue Alliance stays in. And then Somalia gets petitioned by Congo to invade into Tanzania, and they do, taking some land because their troops are also probably... But a lot of the people in Somalia are actually originally from Tanzania, like maybe their parents were from Tanzania because there was a lot of movement between these two. And so, like, a war between these two, neither side really wants it, but the Somali government does, because they were basically founded by people whose main philosophy was we hate Tanzania. However, as soon as that war starts, Cape Verde is captured by Mauritania just to like show Somalia you're not worth anything. And of course, everyone is looking to the Pink Alliance to see what they'll do. And the Pink Alliance will basically officially stay neutral. They make a huge statement talking about how neutral they're going to be, but Algeria will not be neutral. And they will start invading into Morocco, adding yet another front to this war. And Morocco will have most of their major cities captured pretty quickly because they had sent way too many troops down to help Nigeria. But those troops are helping Nigeria out against the front line until they're told to come home. After which, Nigeria gets invaded again, and at this point it's pretty war-torn, which is very bad for it. However, Morocco was able to get all its territory back. Algeria hadn't actually put that much force there because they just knew it was undefended. They want to destroy it, more so than, like, actually take it. Unfortunately, they didn't think it through all the way because now Morocco is invading into Algeria. They already took Algiers, and then they took Tunis. And all of a sudden, Egypt gets involved on the side of the Dark Blue Alliance, to try and take some land from Algeria as the Algerian government basically collapses. And with Egypt being involved, they help Nigeria out with logistics, just to ensure Nigeria doesn't get completely folded, and then they leave the war. But they still expect to get stuff out of the peace treaty. Somalia is officially getting crippled by Tanzania. They really were never nearly as strong as Tanzania. So they will officially leave the war, especially because they don't really have any allies anymore. And at this point, Congo decides to throw in the towel. So it's just the Chad African Republic left. And Nigeria will basically start to clobber the Chad African Republic. And at this point, Rwanda will join in on the war, despite having declared neutrality, just to get some land out of the Chad African Republic as well. And this is the African continent post-war. A lot of countries are gone. Algeria is gone, the Chad African Republic is gone, and Cape Verde is gone after this war. Last event of this episode, Eswatini will be invading west. And Eswatini's invasion will not be very successful at first, only getting that much land before Lesotho starts invading into them. But Eswatini knew something that Lesotho didn't, and that's that the old Botswanan government, which was taking refuge in Congo, just been sent back down to Botswana and was basically missioned to retake it. So they land in Cape Town, and basically the entire population is like, yay, we love you, Botswana, because Lesotho is not a good place to live under, but Botswana was. And that happens. So Lesotho will basically leave the war and leave everything to Eswatini, and maybe even promise them to give them some land if they solve the crisis. But they might not solve the crisis because this rebellion is pretty large, and it's definitely being funded by a lot of outside powers, especially the Dark Blue Alliance, who is tired of this and starts invading to help out the rebellion. And at this point, Lesotho's prime minister, let's say, they have a prime minister. I don't know who they actually have in real life, but this is like the 14th government of Lesotho, so it doesn't really matter. Their prime minister will resign, and their government will stop functioning. And the new Botswanan government will join the Dark Blue Alliance. And although it has been weakened in that it lost Somalia, it is significantly stronger than it was at the start of the last episode. And a lot of countries, like, for example, Rwanda and Guinea-Bissau, as well as Nigeria and Egypt, will start to break their ties with the Dark Blue Alliance, seeing its growing strength as a threat to their own governments. But with that, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.